extreme.
Hey everybody on YouTube. Thanks for following me. This is Professor DiMaggio's Gaming. I was asked by a YouTube follower to do a guide about how to improve with Rashid. They had asked about drills and training and strategies in general. So part one of this guide is devoted to the things that you shouldn't do with Rashid if you want to climb rank and get better with the character. What I will do when I get into the second video is I'll talk about some of the do's. So this video is going to cover the 7 don'ts, or what I think 7 big things are that people shouldn't be doing with the character if you want to improve. And then the 7 do's will have more to do with things like training and drills and what kind of stuff you can do with the character if you want to quickly climb up the ranks. So if you're a lower middle rank and you want to get up to master, or climb the MR ranked game. Hopefully some of this stuff will help you quite a bit because it's helped me for sure. Okay, so the first don't with Rashid is a pretty important one, and that's don't use standing hard kick as a consistent anti-air. So the problem that comes up with this is that the hitbox is really not very good, and it's all really pretty much forward in front of you and not so much above you. So if you've got somebody jumping in above you and you don't push this fast enough, it's really just not going to work as an anti-air. And so I think realistically what happens is that this is like a really good poking tool when you're both on the ground, sort of a neutral, and you're trying to play footsies and hit somebody. And if you're pushing it preemptively sometimes, trying to just poke at them, and they jump, it can be an okay anti-air because you pushed it fast enough, even if it was incidental, or you might catch him with it, and then you can try and juggle into some hits. But otherwise, it really just doesn't work very well. You know, you really need to be using his hard or heavy mixer for anti-air. So as you can see here in the recording, you know, if you wait too long after Ken jumps, you know, he's gonna jump in here, and I'm gonna sort of wait to react. See, it doesn't really work. Like, it doesn't catch them. You can see it again, like where you trade there at best. And if it's delayed, you know, you might hit them. Sometimes you do hit them. A lot of times it's just really not good, right? They'll land behind you if you're close. Or if we try it again, you know, you push it too late, it's best to trade. And so this is just not very effective. Like, what you want to be doing is you really want to using the, you know, the heavy mixer for the anti-air. That's your move right there. The crouching medium punch, people do use it sometimes. I know I've heard people say that it's usable, but I think part of the problem is that this move is, like, sometimes you just miss if you don't hit it quite right, and a lot of times it just trades. So it's really just not very, very good either in terms of consistency and reliability. Okay, so your second don'ts with Rashid is don't fail to mix up your whirlwind shots. Because what ends up happening is, especially if you charge those things, and even if you don't, like, people just, they know that you're throwing them a lot if you start spamming them, or if you're doing them quite a bit, even as a zoning tool. And what's going to happen is people are just going to start preemptively jumping, or if they see you charging it, or even just a quick one tossed out, they're going to jump. And so his fireball is sort of interesting in the sense that, you know, you've got the really long one, and people can just jump over this pretty easily. Right, it's got some really good range, but it's just not good as an anti-air juggle or something. So, you know, you've got sort of the medium kick, you've got the light kick that goes further, and you've got the heavy kick that goes straight up. And the reason why you want to vary these up, especially the first time you see somebody jumping in at you, or even before that, just preemptively, is because the heavy whirlwind shot can catch people in the air. So let's say we get Ken here, and let's say we go to throw sort of a longer one, right? They can jump in over it. And, like, let's say we do that for the medium as well. It's going to jump over it. But if you're doing the heavy and you're expecting the jump in, so you can catch them like that. If you get lucky and the timing is right, oh, this is pretty finicky stuff, you can try and, you know, you can try and combo into it like that through a juggle. That's kind of difficult, more advanced stuff, but you know, not bad when you get more comfortable with the character. Okay, so third don't with Rashid is do not rely too heavily on light cyclone into the overhead attacks in sort of this neutral range here. So usually, like when people start playing Rashid, they realize that his normals, a lot of them are not that good. Like his standing hard kick is pretty good, although you can't really cancel much into it unless it's done on a, you punish a character, punish counter. You can do all types of stuff like combos, but it's a decent poke. It's susceptible to drive impact, but a lot of his normals are not very good in terms of range. So you've got the medium punch here, which really doesn't have very good range. The crouching medium doesn't have very good range. And so these moves really just aren't very good unless you're going to try and drive rush into them. If you do that, then you've got a little bit more range there. For example, there, if you do the crouching medium or regular medium and do a combo, yeah, you've got some range, but you've got to spend bar to do that. So it's actually much better to try and use as part of like a range technique. Forward medium punch cancel into light mixer. You actually get some really good range on that. You can attack from further away, and so yeah, that helps compensate for some of the crappiness of his normal buttons here. But again, my point was, when people start playing this character, say, well, how do I get some range out of him because of these normals that aren't that great for the character? So they think, oh, I'll do like a light cyclone into an overhead medium kick or hard punch because it's an overhead and because these things work in terms of starting up combos. So the problem that you're going to run into is that people can see this stuff coming a mile away. So if you're like, this distance, you do the light cyclone into the back and kick into another medium kick, push medium kick and back twice, you'll go for the overhead. But as you can see here, the setup takes really forever to get there. So anytime in that process as you're coming forward, the opponent can push a button, a quick button, and they're just going to shut it down. And same thing with the hard punch, right? Like that has all day for them to see what you're doing. And so I don't want to say not to do this sometimes, but if you're doing it regularly, it's just going to be a recipe for failure as you climb ranks past Diamond. As you get into, Master rank, people are just going to see this stuff, and a lot of times in Diamond too. So what you want to do is, and also be careful with regards to the target combo, because you can actually use it as a frame trap. You can do light cyclone after the target combo, which is medium punch into hard kick. So this is your target combo, obviously. And it's negative after, as you can see. So what you can do to protect yourself there is you can either do a light mixer after, like this, which will protect you from getting hit. At least you can block after. And if they try to throw, you can try to tech the throw. But you can also do a light cyclone because of this frame trap. If somebody pushes a button, they're just going to get hit by it. So I have the training dummy program to block twice, and then after block to do a reversal for a light punch. And even a light punch, because this is a frame trap, they're going to get hit. See, so that's good. Yeah, you can sort of shut somebody down, get some protection on that if you want to sort of come in on them, whether it's like a jump, you're going to have that protection there, that buffer, that space, or whatever it is. You could try to drive rush in and do it if they block the first 3 hits. But the problem is that with this, like if you want to go into the light cyclone after the light cyclone, you want to go into that overhead for the punch or the overhead heavy punch or the medium kick. Like it's just not going to work if somebody pushes the button, right? So again, even though you're really close, you're trying to link it, more hits after the light cyclone. You'll hit them with the light cyclone, but you won't hit them with the remaining hits. So it basically ends up looking something like this. Well, like you see that block there, so it's not a true combo string, right? And if they decide to push a button there, it's just not going to work. It's not a true combo string. So yeah, you get that hit, but nothing after, as you can see. Right, you can go for the overhead, and they're just going to block, or they can hit. So it doesn't really work. I think realistically, in order to get those overheads, you just have to realize that this is not the best middle range sort of neutral tool, doing light cyclone into the overhead medium kick or heavy punch. You really want to try to save that stuff for when you're in the corner or when you're doing a meaty setup. So let's say you're doing a meaty setup. You just have to know sort of the proper spacing here. So like if you were to do the target combo into hard Cyclone, if you hit on the target combo, and so maybe like, you want to sort of hit confirm with this, and you don't feel comfortable hit confirming with just 2 buttons because the target combo is pretty fast, you could start with like a drive rush or something. Okay, so let's say you were to do drive rush, medium punch, hard kick as the target combo, like a medium punch and then the target combo. You would have enough spacing there where you could set that up with a heavy Cyclone into an overhead, and you'd be able to hit them. So, for example, it would look something like this. And you could do like a hard kick over the top, or you could do a medium kick if you wanted to do that. So yeah, either one of those work as a meaty. And so those are the kind of situations where you want to take advantage of that overhead, whether it's the kick or the overhead heavy punch, the hard kick or the medium kick. Same thing really in the corner. Like if you're in the corner and you do a drive impact and you're lucky enough to hit them with that, or if you do a meaty drive impact, there's a bunch of those that I do with Rashid and other people do. You can do like a target combo into hard eagle spike, and then you can use a medium Cyclone to set up the Cyclone into the overhead. So it would look something like this. Then you do the medium Cyclone, and then you can do your overhead hits, right? And so you don't have to worry about that setup because you've already got the setup there. Like you've set it up as a meaty, so you don't have to worry about getting jabbed out of or punched out of that stuff. And really, the only way they're going to be able to stop you is if they use like a wake up super or a wake up EX move, and there's really nothing you're going to be able to do to stop that outside of blocking and trying to bait somebody if you know that they like to do that kind of stuff. So this is another big don't with Rashid is don't rely too heavily on that light Cyclone startup into medium kick or hard punch. Just sort of raw, because it just doesn't work well. People can see it coming a mile away. And even if you're trying to do a light Cyclone after the target combo, people can block the next hits after that. You're trying to go into an overhead because it's not a true combo string. So, being a little more thoughtful with this stuff and doing it as part of meaties on wake up is actually better, especially if you're using, drive rush, crouching, light kick to start all of this up, because it's just such a fast tool when you do that, right? Like, it's hard for people to block a lot of times, so something to keep in mind. Okay, so there's one other way that you can go into one of those overheads off of a meaty too, and that would be using a EX Cyclone after finishing a combo with a heavy kick. And so it would look something like this. Obviously you can have any combo variation you want after that, but that would be another way to safely do the overhead, whether it's a kick or an overhead punch or an overhead medium kick, heavy kick, or the overhead punch. Okay, so another don't with Rashid is sort of a universal don't. I like to tell people when playing this game, don't rely heavily on wake-up supers and wake-up EXDPs if you don't have to, because I think this is really more of a sort of emergency thing where you're trying to salvage a round. If somebody's got you in the corner and they're really just pounding the hell out of you, I don't think you even want to do it at the very beginning of being taken to the corner or someone pressuring you in general on wake up, because if you get known as sort of like a wake up super artist, it's a pretty scrubby thing, and especially a wake up EXDP, people know that you're going to do it if they see you do it the first time, and it's just not a reliable, good way to get better at the game, because you've sort of de-skilled the game. Like, anybody can hit with Rashid down forward in 2 punches after they get knocked down, and basically, if someone knows that you're going to keep doing it over and over and over, or if you're going to do it, let's say 30 or 40 or 50% of the time, basically, like, you've ensured that your opponent isn't really going to be able to play consistent offense against you. And I think for a lot of players, they say, oh, great, that means they don't get to play offense. But the thing is, the other player can do that too. So if 2 people just want to do wake-up supers and wake-up EX moves over and over and over and really consistently, like, there's not really much offense that can be had in the game. It's just sort of a lot of random sort of scrubby stuff. So The way I look at it is like it's not that a wake up super or a wake up EX move doesn't have a place in the game, but if you're trying to salvage a round and like someone's got you in the corner or they're really pushing and you're, maybe you've lost half of your health or something, 40, 50, 60% of your health, and you want to salvage that round, yeah, it's something to do once. And if you're not doing it a lot, like they're not going to be expecting it. But if you're doing it a lot, then they're just going to start trying to bait you, and that's a really bad way to play the game because you're not going to be able to win consistently. So in the case of Ken here, let's say Ken does a dragon punch, and then he runs into his medium kick, which I think is relatively meaty for him. I don't really play Ken that much anymore. I used to. Okay, there it is. So you can do a DP into the kick, and it's relatively meaty there. So, yeah, what do you do with that? Let's say that I do a recording for that. Okay. And so now my dummy's going to do it. And I get hit there, right? You get your dragon punch, and then he's going to run, and you're going to do your EX super, right? And you say, wow, that feels really good. But, like I said, the other player is going to know that you're doing that. So it doesn't really help you in the long term to play that way with any character because it makes you very predictable. And so, you might want to try things like perfect parry on wake up, sometimes just blocking. If you think the opponent's going to try and throw you on wake up, jumping out of the way. There's a lot of different ways to play defense, maybe a drive reversal. Maybe sometimes consider like a wake up super or EX if you're getting pounded in a match and you want to salvage a round and the battle in general. But just in general, it's not something you want to be doing regularly if you want to have success at the higher levels of this game. Okay, so another thing you want to be really careful about in this game, this is just more generic advice, not just for Rashid, but the drive impact and drive system in general for this game. Drive rush, drive impact, drive reversal. In terms of defense, I use drive reversal much more than I should because I like defensive mechanics. But the thing is in this game that it's just really not very good because you can do a drive reversal, and I think it's okay to do it a few times in a match, maybe once or most twice in a round, but probably not even that much ideally, is that it's really negative. So it's kind of silly. It takes a lot of resources and bar, but it can also be punished with light and medium kicks and punches. So, if you start doing it regularly, what's going to happen is the opponent's going to block the drive reversal. They're going to try and bait it out by doing one hit and then blocking. And then you're going to do it, and they're going to block, and then they're going to punish you for a big combo. So let's say you got Ken here, right? We'll program him to do some hard punches. Okay. So yeah, you can do a drive reversal, right? You can do the drive reversal. It takes up more than 2 bars. And it's an okay way to sort of get somebody off of you. But if you do it regularly, then it's just a free punish. So as you can see here, if I'm Ken, and I want to try to bait somebody out for a drive reversal, you can just push a single button and block, and then punish at will. You see, there's a pretty. You can get a full combo, like massive amount of damage from that. So this is basically what you're at risk of with the drive reversal. Until Capcom makes it less negative or fixes it. It's just not a very good mechanic for Rashid or for any character. Okay, so another thing that you don't want to do with Rashid is what I sometimes hear people call, instead of hit confirming, wish confirming. This happens, people want to do the hard punch into medium kick because it's got medium eagle spike because it's got really good corner carry. The problem is that any eagle spike, whether it's the light, the medium, or the heavy, is extremely negative if blocked. So if you don't have like a guaranteed hit confirm, you really shouldn't be doing it. Like that's a combo, and you can do that, and it's got a good corner carry, right? But you have to be able to confirm that you're actually going to hit them. So, if you're doing it with the medium spike there, it works. After a You know, someone does something dangerous. So, for example, you know, you can combo into level 3 or something on a punish. So all of this is well and good, but you know, if you're just trying to sort of dry rush at somebody or just, you know, jump at them, let's say you put your dummy on block everything, right? And you go into this, you're hugely negative here. All they have to do is walk forward and drive impact, or they can drive rush and punish you. So this is not actually good. You're sort of wish confirming. You're hoping to confirm that second hit and they're not going to block, or you're hoping that you're going to hit them. Say they block the jumping hard kick and the heavy kick. If they block that, you don't want to be going into the hard punch into that because you're going to be hugely negative. So you can see the danger here and how susceptible this is to drive impact in terms of, you know, a basic punish. Or something else if you want to do a drive rush too. So what you want to do instead, you know, is, you know, instead of this, you know, maybe you're sort of playing around with, you're a little bit closer in and you do, I don't know, you do a kick into some jabs. And instead of doing the medium spike or light spike after a hard punch, you can do something like, assuming they don't jab you out of it, you know, because there's a space between the two light punches and the hard punch. But let's just say you're playing with somebody who likes to block a lot, right? They're very defensive. You know, you can do some jabs into the hard punch into a hard cyclone and roll and still pressure them. And after, you're going to be plus if you throw more jabs. Or if they just keep blocking after the roll, you can just throw them, even if they could technically interrupt it if you try to throw, because the throw is slower than a jab. But if they block a lot, yeah, and you can just keep pressing them, pressing the person. So let's say you jump in and, you know, you do some more jabs, right? Like, that's a much safer way to pressure somebody and carry them to the corner, because at some point in that process, they're probably going to push a button, right? If you're either jumping in or drive rushing in and doing something like, you know, something like that, at some point they're probably going to push a button. And sometimes what I'll do is, even though it costs a little bit, you know, you can definitely hit confirm on something like this. You can jump in, medium kick, some punches into the hard punch, and then you can do the hard cyclone, roll forward. And sometimes I'll do like another jab or two, and then I'll drive rush after, or cancel drive rush into more jabs and other hits. And usually at that point, somebody will push a button somewhere in this process, and you're going to be able to take them to the corner, assuming they don't anti-air you on the first jump. So you can go, you know, something like this. And usually at some point in that sequence, they're probably going to push a button and you're going to hit them. Especially after the hard cyclone and you roll forward into the jabs. Like, that's not interruptible. So somebody's going to get punished if they push a button there, because that's a block string. So yeah, you know, don't wish confirm on the light, medium, or hard eagle spikes. Sometimes you see Rashid players do this stuff. At the beginning of the round, they'll start with like an eagle spike, like a heavier or a medium, and it's just really reckless, bad gameplay. Like, it's just somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, and they're just sort of hoping that somebody's not going to block, because that's like a super easy punish if you do that stuff regularly. Okay, so final don't with Rashid is, a lot of this you'll see with him, because he's got such a large toolkit, you don't want to rely on any one thing too consistently. So one of the things that people like to do if they're a little bit further away is they like to rely a lot, myself and other Rashid players, on the charge projectile, the charge wind shot. And that's fine if you're far away, right? They're going to block, and then you're going to be able to do stuff like an amplified, enhanced light mixer, and then you're plus in their face, and you can push more buttons and so on. So yeah, it's a really good tool, but what has happened is that people have gotten really good at jumping back and kicking, sometimes even jumping straight up and kicking a neutral jump. And so they can time it well. People have just gotten good at it. And if you consistently use that light mixer that's enhanced, or let's say, one of the eagle spikes, yeah, it does push you back, but if they jump back, they can punish that. on landing. So, one of the things that you can do if you've got somebody who really likes to jump a lot, they think that, they don't really know the character Rashid. I run into this a lot with players. They think that, oh, it's just as simple as just jumping back and punishing. And it's really not actually. They just don't know. So let's say that do the charge shot into the light mixer and then they jump back. You can act and they punish you. Well, if you know that they're going to do that, one thing you can do, and I don't suggest doing it a lot, but maybe one time, is you can do the charge shot into the diagonal. That's the medium version, and it's enhanced. And what's going to happen is you're going to catch them in the air as they're jumping back. And the goal here is that you can sort of condition people when you do this, when you do that move. So you don't want to do it a lot because, as you can see there, if they block the whole thing, then they're going to punish you. But you want to do it once. And you hope that the person you're playing is a decent enough player that they can actually be conditioned and be rational in terms of thinking. A lot of people aren't. They're not going to get the message, right? So you got to be really, really careful if somebody's sort of, a loose cannon player. But, if someone can be conditioned and they're a thoughtful player, right, you don't want to keep getting hit jumping back with that. So what'll happen is they'll stop jumping or they'll jump less. And what that does is it sort of opens things up for you a little bit. Next time you do the charge, next time you do it, you can do the light version, the enhanced version, and then you can try and do stuff after it. So, whatever it is you're trying to do, you can do it. But just be careful. It's like anything with Rashid. You don't want to do any one thing too much. You don't want to, rely too much on the charge shot, because what can happen, especially if you get too close, like here, people can just jump over it. They can just jump over it because they see a mile away that it's coming. So, if you're doing it as a meaty, after hard punch, medium eagle spike, and they're in the corner, yeah, you can do the charge shot, and then it's safe. You're not going to be able to jump out of that in the corner. But in general, like if you're sort of at this range here, I don't think you really want to charge it here if you don't have enough time to do it as a meaty in the corner. And if you're further back like this, even here you want to be careful, because if you do this too much, people know that this is coming and they can do an EX move after, even if you're plus. Or if you're just constantly making people guess between, like, the forward light mixer or the diagonal one, that's just a dangerous position for you to be in, because they may jump or they may not, and then they can punish you if you're doing the diagonal one. So you just don't want to be too one-dimensional in your gameplay. But what you really want to do is you want to sort of protect yourself. You want to use it in situations where the person's not going to be able to jump out of what you're doing. So there's ways to do this outside of just sort of doing it raw. One thing you can do is you can drive rush into a target combo, and after the target combo, you can charge up the charge shot. And depending on if they wake up in place or wake up rolling back, use different ones. You got to sort of pay attention to what the person's doing in the match. So, you would use the further light kick version of the charge shot if they roll back, and you'd use the medium version if they're not rolling back and they're just waking up in place. So you want to use the medium one like this. You're going to catch them. Now, you would expect somebody to block, but if they're blocking, then they can't jump. So that's sort of the point, that you can get free pressure there without even using bar after you've knocked them down. And, if they don't block, great, you can punish them. And if they do block, you can pressure them and do something at the end, more pressure. And maybe they block high. And, you even have to use the amplified. So you can do something like this and, that kind of pressure, or something like this, like the run into like a level 1 or something. With a huge amount of damage there, as you see. So you can do that, if they don't back rise, but let's say you set the player to back rise, recover backward. Then you'll use the longer one. And it's sort of the same deal, right? You can do the same stuff, same kind of pressure, but do it with the back rise. You just have to sort of, pick the right one. Other thing you can do is, if you can get in on somebody and do the EX Cyclone into the running kicks, you don't have to finish up that combo. So, normally people take you to the corner and they do either like the medium mixer or the heavy mixer as a finisher. You just don't do that. You just stop before the finisher and then you start doing a charge of the hard charge shot, and then you sort of keep the party going. Yeah, it doesn't mean less damage, sure, but it's a safer way to use the charge shot, and you're basically giving up the little bit of damage at the end of that combo because of scaling for the possibility of a whole nother combo string, because this ends up being meaty. So it would be something like this. Right, and if they don't block, obviously you get that hit and you get more hits. If they do block, you can still pressure them. But this is the kind of thing, this is like a more responsible, good way to use the charge shot, where if you do end up hitting them, you can do massive damage, over 50% damage on some of these combos, just to give you an example here. Take him to the corner, and you can really light people up for over 50. This is like 58% damage combo here, if you can hit them with this. Now, maybe you don't get all those hits, but maybe you do something else. Maybe at the end of the combo, you can go into a hard punch, heavy punch, into a DI, because they're not going to be able to jump out of that. And then you're going to have them sort of have your way with them in the corner. So it looks something like this. Right? They're not going to jump out of that, and then you can finish up the combo in the corner. So these are just like, some really good examples of how to more responsibly and effectively use charge shot instead of just sort of randomly tossing it out there raw, although that's okay sometimes too if the opponent isn't going to be jumping. So I hope this video has been helpful. This is the 7 don'ts of Rashid, what to avoid in terms of common mistakes and reckless gameplay. I'll be doing another video soon for the 7 do's of what you should do if you want to get to master rank and beyond. And that will be coming soon, so look for it. Take care.